She was just another shadow on the streets of Los Angeles, thin, exhausted, and struggling to breathe every day. Emma set up her small easel in the city center, hoping to sell at least one painting. Not for fame, not for ambition, but for something much simpler, to survive. Until one decisive afternoon, a man stopped in front of her works. Something about those canvases made him hesitate, like a cowboy smelling a storm in the air. What Emma didn't know was that the stranger with the penetrating gaze was about to turn her world upside down. The man in front of her was Clint Eastwood, and what he would do next would turn Emma's desperate struggle into a story the world would never forget. Before we go any further, tell us in the comments, have you ever seen a wasted talent that deserved a chance? And don't forget to subscribe tomorrow. There's another special story here on the channel. Los Angeles was breathing to the rhythm of nighttime jazz. Neon lights danced in the rain puddles, horns blared like saxophones, and the smell of fresh coffee from the nearby coffee shop mingled with the wet asphalt. For everyone, it was just another ordinary evening. For Emma, every minute was a countdown. Her trembling fingers adjusted the screens on the precarious table. The cold Californian night chilled her skin, but she ignored it. She had more pressing things to feel. Each brush stroke there represented a dose of medicine, an extra day of treatment. The disease had taken down her body, but not her pride. She didn't wear signs asking for help. He didn't cry. She just painted while the world rushed by, oblivious to the pale young woman with deep circles under her eyes and a worn brush in her hands. Until he appeared like a character out of one of her movies. Faded jeans like someone who doesn't care about fashion leather jacket that has seen more roads than a map's sunglasses. Even when the sun was setting, typical of someone who has stories to hide, unlike the crowd, he walked with the calm of someone who has lived long enough not to be in a hurry. He passed his desk, took 2 steps, and stopped. He turned slowly, like a wolf sniffing out something interesting. Emma held her breath. The man examined the canvases with the same intensity with which Eastwood stared at the bandit in The Man with No Name. He picked up a small painting, a girl reading on a bench, surrounded by the lights of the city, and remained motionless for long seconds. "You painted all these?" A husky voice, direct, blunt. Emma nodded, feeling a chill run down her spine. That voice was famous. He studied the canvas again, then uttered the phrase that would change everything. The light in that scene. It looks like the city is breathing around it. Emma blinked in surprise. No one had ever understood her art like that. "I try to capture moments of peace in the midst of chaos," she explained, not knowing why she was opening up to this stranger. The man remained silent, that dense silence that only Clint Eastwood knows how to make, like in the best moments of The Golden Girl. When he finally spoke, it was with the weight of someone who has won 2 Oscars. "That's true." Emma felt something strange in her chest. That wasn't just any flattery, it was the recognition of a master. And then, as he put the canvas back, she realized the way he held the painting, his posture, the almost imperceptible scar on his forehead, just like the one Eastwood got in a film shoot in the 70s. Her heart raced. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination from the medication. She was standing in front of Clint Eastwood. Emma felt the air go out of her lungs. That face. She knew that face marked by time. She'd seen it in classic films, in TV interviews, even in the documentary about the Cannes Film Festival. But what on earth was Clint Eastwood doing standing in front of his chemotherapy-cursed screens? Impossible, he thought, as his sweaty fingers gripped the table. Celebrities like him don't appear in corner cafes. Unless the myth, returned the screen to its place with precise movements, like someone reloading a revolver. But he didn't leave. He continued examining the other works with that gaze that has directed 40 films, capable of seeing truths that even artists hide from themselves. Emma felt her world spinning. It wasn't just the vertigo of her illness. It was the weight of being in front of someone who knew, like in that iconic scene from About Boys and Wolves, when the old coach sees the raw talent in the troubled boy. "Do you sell here every day?" His voice was rough as concrete under the California sun. Emma swallowed. Lying to Clint Eastwood? As easy as fooling a retired sheriff, almost every day. "When I'm well enough." He lifted his glasses, those clear blue eyes that had intimidated generations of actors, and asked the question no one had ever asked him before. What about today? Good day or bad day? For a moment, Emma considered giving the standard answer. But there, in front of the man who had built his career on showing the beauty in imperfections, only the truth would do. It's a day. That's still happening. Eastwood almost smiled. Almost. Instead, he pointed to a specific canvas, a self-portrait she had painted on the worst day of chemotherapy. This one. That's when pain becomes art, right? It was then that the ground moved beneath her feet. Not metaphorically. Emma's legs weakened. Her hands shook like leaves in the wind. She clung to the table, but it was too late. Clint had already seen her. Before she could protest, a metal chair appeared behind her, placed there by hands that had once held Oscars and horse reins in the Wild West. Sit down. It wasn't a request. While Emma recovered, Eastwood studied the paintings like a detective deciphering clues. This city runs so fast that it forgets to breathe. But you stopped to catch its breath. No one had ever described his work like that. Not her art teacher, not even her mother. Emma felt something strange, something she hadn't felt for months: hope. When she looked up, she saw that Clint was now holding the most personal painting of all, a child looking at the sea for the first time, painted on the day the doctors said, remission. This one, he turned the canvas against the sunset light, is the only one you painted for yourself. You can see it. Emma didn't know whether to cry or run. How did he know? How did he see so much? That's when she realized she was no longer in front of Clint Eastwood, the film legend. She was in front of Clint Eastwood, the storyteller, the one who always knew how to find beauty in the most broken characters. While paying for 2 screens with neatly folded bills as men of his generation do, Emma finally found her courage. You're not exactly an ordinary collector, are you? Eastwood adjusted his glasses, that dirty, hairy half-smile on his lips. I collect stories, girl, and yours. He pointed at the screens. Is full of truths that even you don't see yet. He turned to go, but stopped after 3 steps, as he always did in movies before the killer line. I'll be back tomorrow, bringing a friend who understands this better than me. And then he was gone, leaving behind not just money, but a question that would burn in Emma's mind all night. What did a legendary director see in his paintings that she herself couldn't? Emma's apartment smelled of paint and hope. Among unfinished canvases and tubes of oil scattered across the floor, she leaned back on the worn sofa. Still feeling the weight of that impossible truth, Clint Eastwood had bought one of her paintings. It wasn't a delirium from the Medicat Ion. It wasn't a fever dream. He'd been there, in his faded jeans and sunglasses, and had made an appointment for the next day. Why? The question echoed in his mind as Los Angeles shone outside the dirty window. His body was begging for rest, but his mind was running faster than the horses in The Unforgiven. When he finally fell asleep, it was with the sound of that hoarse voice repeating, I'll be back tomorrow. The biting wind that day carried the smell of coffee from the coffee shop and the bitter aroma of car smoke. Emma snuggled into her thin coat, the same landscape as always, but with one new detail. Clint Eastwood was walking towards her, accompanied by a man in an elegant overcoat who looked like he'd stepped out of a 50 Seconds film noir. Emma. Eastwood greeted her with a nod, in that dry way that only true tough guys can make affectionate. Today you look less like a ghost than yesterday. She smiled, surprised that he remembered her name. She was even more surprised to notice his pallor. The man next to her held out his hand. Discreet rings, perfect nails. Robert Lang, curator of the Monterey Museum of Contemporary Art. Emma swallowed. Monterey, the same museum that had rejected her portfolio 6 months ago. While Robert examined each canvas with X-ray eyes, Eastwood stood motionless like a sheriff assessing a crime scene. The wind turned to canvas, revealing the self-portrait Emma had never dared to show, her naked body after the mastectomy, the scars transformed into rivers of golden paint. Robert stopped. Clint didn't. Eastwood called me at 4 a.m. The curator confessed, turning over another canvas. He said he'd found the next Frida Kahlo on a sidewalk in L.A. Normally, I would have hung up on him. Emma felt her legs shaking. Clint just crossed his arms, satisfied. I told him he'd want to see you after he saw the painting of the girl in the sea. Robert took that one, the first he had painted after his diagnosis, and surprised her. This one, You painted it in anger. You can see it in the brushstrokes. Anger at the disease, at injustice, at life. But you turned it all into beauty. She looked up. That's exactly what the big collectors are looking for today. Emma expected empty praise. What she got was a verbal contract. Solo exhibition in the museum's satellite gallery, guaranteed sale of 10 canvases at market price, 20% donation to the Children's Cancer Institute. It's not charity, Eastwood cut in, anticipating her refusal. It's business. Art that doesn't move people isn't art, it's decoration, Robert added seriously. Clint is right. Your story is as valuable as your technique, and we're going to tell it. Emma looked at her hands, marked by needles and paint, then at Eastwood, that look that has faced gangsters and dictators on screens all over the world. In his eyes, she saw something unexpected, respect. It wasn't pity, it wasn't guilt. It was the same glow he had when talking about the great directors who had inspired him. I need your answer by tomorrow, Robert said, handing over his card. As they walked away, Eastwood stayed behind. Without ceremony, he took off his glasses and stared at Emma as only he knows how. I know what you're thinking, that you don't deserve it. That you're too lucky. He paused like an experienced director. But talent without opportunity is like a script without a screen. It just turns to dust. Emma felt a lump in her throat. He understood everything. His voice broke. What do I do now? Clint Eastwood smiled for the first time. That rare, golden girl smile. What you've always done, girl. Fight. And turning away, his silhouette blended into the Los Angeles sunset, leaving behind not a goodbye, but an until the next scene, like in the old westerns, where the hero never says goodbye. He just disappears over the horizon when his job is done. Emma leaned her cold forehead against the apartment window, watching the Los Angeles night. In the last 48 hours, her life had become one of those scripts that Eastwood loved so much. Unpredictable, brutal, full of twists and turns. Now, with the museum contract on the ink-stained coffee table, a question haunted her. What if I fail? The phone vibrated. It was Robert, the curator. We need your decision by tomorrow. Eastwood insists that we can't lose that light. She looked at the unfinished self-portrait, her face sculpted by the disease but still resilient. She remembered that phrase Clint had said when he met her. Art that doesn't move people is decoration. She took a deep breath. The fear didn't disappear, but something stronger emerged. Anger. Anger at having doubted. Anger at almost passing up the chance. The next afternoon, Eastwood was in the same place as he had promised. Jeans, cowboy boots, and those sunglasses that hid more than they revealed. This time, no Robert, just him, a leather briefcase, and two options that would change everything. So, Clint took off his glasses, wiping them on his jeans, before continuing. Robert has already explained the two routes to you. Gallery first, then auction, or direct sale to a collector. Emma felt sweat on her hands. The words came out before she could think. Which would you choose? Eastwood emitted that characteristic grunt, half laughter, half skepticism. Me? I'm too old to choose safe paths. But you pointed to his canvases. Your paintings scream that you've made up your mind. It was true. As she arranged the canvases on the sidewalk, Emma realized that she had already sorted them instinctively. On the left, works for the gallery, strong political. Painful on the right, canvases for the collector full of light. Hope Clint took a small canvas from the pile on the right. A child playing in an empty park at sunset. This one. It's the one that will pay for all your treatment. Turn the canvas over. Signature. Now, the invitation glowed under the gallery lights. Emma Carter, Inconvenient Truths. Robert had been a marketing genius. He had turned her story into an epic narrative. The artist who painted pain into beauty. Now, surrounded by critics and collectors, Emma felt like she was in a movie. The kind Eastwood would direct, full of eloquent silences. And in the center of the room, his masterpiece, Self-Portrait as a Survivor, naked, bald, scars exposed like war medals. That's when they saw him. Clint Eastwood entered quietly, but everyone turned away like the Red Sea. He was wearing a black suit, not jeans. He walked straight to the self-portrait, stopped 2 meters away, always the director, calculating shots. Emma approached, wearing the same simple dress as always. "What do you think?" He studied the screen for another 10 seconds before answering. "Something's missing." His heart stopped. Something was missing? Where? Clint pulled a gold pen from his pocket and held it out to her. "Sign this shit right, girl. It's your victory." And for the first time in months, Emma laughed until she cried. While she was signing autographs, Robert appeared with his cell phone on speakerphone. "Someone wants to talk to you." A child's voice echoed through the speaker. "I'm Ben. I'm 8 years old. My mom says you've gone bald like me too. Your paintings are nice. I was wondering if you'd come and paint our wall at the hospital one day." Emma looked at Eastwood, who knew before she said it. "Mark my presence, Ben." Clint just nodded in approval. At that moment, she understood what he had been trying to say all along. Winning wasn't about fame or money. It was about using your pain to illuminate the darkness of others. The children's hospital in Los Angeles smelled of antiseptic and fresh paint. Emma, now with short hair colored by the new treatments, stared at the 10-meter white wall like an old west to be conquered. In her hands, no longer a brush trembling with hunger, but professional tools donated by an anonymous friend who she knew very well wore a cowboy hat. "Can I paint a horse?" asked Ben, the little boy from the phone call, pulling on his hospital shirt. His fine veins marked his pale skin, but his eyes shone like Clint's when he found justice. Emma knelt down to his height. "Better than that. Let's paint the horse." She showed him the sketch on her iPad, a wild Mustang, just like the one in The Man Who Killed the Fascinator. Over the next few weeks, that once aseptic corridor turned into a wild west of color. Children undergoing chemotherapy painted purple clouds. Nurses added flowers designed by Eastwood, who showed up unannounced one morning. Even the chief doctor doodled a stylized sun, his first drawing since college. At the official opening, while politicians were making speeches, Emma saw movement at the back door. Clint Eastwood entered quietly, in jeans and boots, carrying two unlikely things: a bucket of gold paint and a yellow envelope. "For you," he said, handing over the envelope with his typical economy of words. "Photos of the mural we did at the hospital in Monterey. Did you think you were going to get rid of me so easily?" Inside were pictures of child cancer patients painting their own mural, inspired by Emma's work. In the corner of each picture, a famous signature, "Make My Day," and a crude drawing of a horse that could only be the work of Eastwood himself. Emma swallowed back her tears. She knew what that gesture meant. He didn't want to be her savior. He wanted her to become a savior too. A year later, the girl who used to paint to survive on the streets was back, signed her collection at Christie's teaching art to cancer patients, received letters from parents thanking her for the hours of peace her walls gave the children, but his favorite painting was still the first one, the one of the girl reading on the bench, which Eastwood had bought for a few folded bills. It now hung at the entrance to the institute they founded together with a simple plaque: "Every success story begins with someone who believes before the world." CE, what's up, team of worthwhile stories? Tell us, what was your Eastwood moment? Someone who appeared out of nowhere and changed your course? If this story touched you, brand someone who needs a push to believe in their talent. Don't let the algorithm defeat you. Subscribe and activate the bell. Every week, a new real story of transformation. Want more inspiration? Click on the video opposite. The Postman Who Became a Painter: How Art Saved a Broken Heart. Remember, as Clint would say, in life, you can be a spectator or a protagonist. Choose your role.